6 months ago, I started the Founders and Builders podcast, and since then, I've interviewed 30 founders whose companies are worth more than $110 billion. We've recorded in London, San Francisco, Helsinki at the big startup conference Slush, with some incredible guests like the founders of Google Maps and investors in companies like Spotify and Amazon. And after analyzing dozens of those interviews, I found 5 steps that every successful founder goes through. So whether you're thinking about starting a company this year, or you'd like to work at a startup, or you're just curious how do billion-dollar businesses get built, this is the video for you.
Once again, it is that time.
So here it is, the 5-step playbook. Step 1, finding your startup idea and your co-founder that you might want to build it with. Step 2 is raising capital from investors that back you and your vision. Step 3 is finding your first customers and closing your first deals. Step 4, once you've found your customers, is scaling the company and putting fuel on the fire. And finally, step 5, maybe the most important of all, is mastering the founder mindset. And in the words of Lars Rasmussen, founder of Google Maps,
there has not been a more exciting time to start a new company in tech than right now. And, I kind of left the founders and builders stage a few years ago. I've never felt a bigger draw back in because of what's happening. It's a proper technological revolution, breathtaking in its scope.
my goal with Founders and Builders is simple. I want you to build the future you want to see in the world, the future you're excited to create. This, especially in the new year, is your time to play life on offense, not to play it safe. So let's get into it. First up, finding your startup idea and your co-founder. Where do you start? So here's Arafili, who started a company at 21 years old and today sells to some amazing businesses like Red Bull, IKEA, and Canva.
I definitely wasn't ready to start working on that back then. I mean, first of all, I didn't have funding. I was in uni. I was working outside of uni. I didn't know how to run a business. I hadn't studied business. I was studying art history. So, I mean, there were like lots of circumstances, I guess, against me. But there were so many ways to bring it to life, that I'm really glad I started early enough before I could have overthought the whole thing. And to me, that was just a lesson I carried through to everything else I did, because it just showed me that if I just, I was excited about the idea, and that's a very important thing. So I didn't want to wait around, and I didn't want to overthink every reason I had not to start it, because there certainly were so many. And then so I just kind of jumped right into it in my free time, kind of, bootstrapped it, took on more jobs, made the website. It was all like pretty bad first version, but it was enough to get it out there and then like figure out how to do it on the job, which I think is one of the very best things you can do when you want to work for yourself, is just learn like to create something and put it out there before you've got time to overthink it and stop yourself. Because like there's never going to be a time where you're actually fully ready.
Now, when we're thinking about what product or service we can create that's valuable for other people, we can sometimes forget what comes most naturally to us. Here's Yanda from B Capital.
You look at things that feel like fun and effortless to you, and your first thought is like, oh, these things must just be easy, full stop, for everyone, right? It's like, oh, this thing is not valuable. It's fun and effortless for me. It must be not valuable. It must be fun and effortless for everybody. So as a result, there's like lots of supply for however much demand there is, and it's not an interesting thing. But then it turns out you look, and like a lot of stuff that's fun and effortless for you, like other people really hate or find really hard or find really like distasteful or boring or whatever. And in some sense, like the beauty of capitalism or just like market systems is that if everybody got to do the thing that was like the most fun and effortless for them, that everybody else thought was like painful or annoying or boring, like one, you have like this vibrant market where like this thing that like came easily to you is actually valuable to somebody else, but also like the general happiness of everybody has gone up because everybody gets to work on the thing that's fun and effortless for them.
Clarity and focus. If investors don't understand you, you won't get funded. And if customers can't understand you, they won't buy what you're selling. Here's Lucas Bewald from Weights and Biases, who just sold his company for $1.7 billion on the importance of clarity.
Most founders that I talk to can't clearly articulate what they're doing in a way that I can understand. So just like honestly, like if I'm talking to a random founder and I ask them like what they're doing, I'm like pretty interested. I'm like viewing it with like rose-colored glasses. I'd say I walk away from most of those conversations not understanding, what they're doing. And I'll kind of ask to clarify like once or twice. So like honestly, I feel like everyone should take that away. You know what I mean? So I think most people can't articulate what they're doing, which is like, I think it's a big problem. You know what I mean? Because you're not going to attract people to you. Like, maybe you yourself aren't really clear on what you're doing. Like something like, hey, we're going to make a better version of TensorBoard. That's like clear enough to the people that, matter. So I mean, I don't know. I feel like that's kind of where it starts. And I also think like, being really focused on a specific pain point. Again, this is obvious advice like everyone would give. I don't think like people really mostly follow it. Like, I mean, I was just, I feel like people kind of want to become like a broad platform before they've sort of nailed a specific thing. Maybe it's like human instinct. I feel like people, kind of get like one company as a customer in like a category. Then they like move on to more categories to like expand like the market TAM. But it's just like, I don't know, just like nail the category. Like everyone's obsessed with like, market size, and it sort of does matter at some point, but you gotta like, you can always expand your market by like broadening your offering. I think it's like, I think more impressive to kind of nail the specific thing you're doing.
Now it's time for step 2, raising investment. Now, for any company, but especially tech companies, raising capital can be a massive advantage. But before you chase funding from investors, first ask yourself one question. Here's James Green, general partner at CRV, on what that one question is.
If you don't want to build a really big business, you just want to build a really good business. There are lots of really good businesses that are not really big. Don't take venture capital. The math isn't in your favor. If you want to, like, in your heart, you want to build a really big company, venture capital is the path for you. That's where the product exists. Take the risk, take the swing, go for it. You are unlikely, unless, in fact, it's impossible for you to build a $1 billion revenue company overnight. It's just not going to happen. And so the question is not how to do it. It's like, what do you want as a person? Do you want to build a really, really big company? And it's really okay not to. Like, Christ, do you want to build a $100 million revenue company? That's sick. That's probably like, worth a lot of money.
Can I just say, I will take that. I'll do it. I would love to build a $100 million annual recurring revenue business.
That is extremely valuable. There is no good public company of that scale. There's just not in the software world. Like there are biotech companies that are valued at $20+ billion without a single dollar in revenue. That's not my business. But if you want to go public today, you've got to be in the $300 million plus range, growing 40%, or you've got to be real profitable.
Next up is an investor that's backed amazing companies like Deliveroo. Hussein from Hoxton Ventures tells all of his founders this one golden piece of advice to keep them focused in a fundraise.
A lot of fundraising is social engineering. Like, you almost take a hacker mindset. You can try and hack the system, or you can socially engineer the system to get into the door of the building that you're trying to get into. Or, there's a much easier way, which is the social engineering stuff.
Now, one insider secret that I saw time and time again is that the smartest founders, they didn't just pitch investors, they got influential people that they already knew that were respected in their industry to pitch for them to those investors. Here's Hussein again on the importance of building those relationships.
The easier way for my founders, like in our own portfolio, to raise is for people in the industry to sell the company forward, right? So instead of me calling up someone at Lightspeed saying, hey, this is a really interesting company, it's like Sam Altman calling up Lightspeed saying this is an interesting company, right? And these things can be engineered to some degree. They take a lot of effort. You have to go build alliances. You have to have you have to be in the industry. But if you're in the industry as a founder, and we can open up a bunch of doors so they can start some of these conversations, it becomes easier to then fundraise.
Next up is step 3, winning deals with your customers. You've started working on your idea. You might have even raised some investment. Now let's get into maybe the most important part of building companies that most founders figure out too late. And that's sales. In sales, you can treat every conversation as an experiment to figure out how you can help this customer and how much, if anything, they're willing to pay you for it. And I love this point from Yander. One of the other tweets that I loved, you said, a startup is not a company. It's an experiment to see if a company deserves to exist. And until product market fit, the speed that you're testing these different hypotheses is more important than anything.
Yeah. I mean, you're building for a market, right? So the first thing is, I think people think like, oh, I incorporated, I have a company now. And it's like, no, you filled out some paperwork.
You mean we can't get the beanbags?
Yeah, I mean,
we need the office dog, man.
You can, you know, but that does not mean that you have a company yet, right? Mm-hmm. All you have is like, you have a box to run some experiments in. Mm-hmm. And then maybe if you run a bunch of good experiments, like then you deserve to like, you know, take the risk of employing other people and et cetera, all that jazz, right? Almost every human endeavor is a conversation with the universe, right? Mm-hmm. A conversation with the world, where it's like, you can't lock yourself in a room and be like, I think people need blah. So I'm just gonna not talk to anyone, build blah, and then just be like, okay, here it is, you know, like, hope you like it, you know, like, or you have to like it because I built it or something like that. Like, the reality is that you have a perspective on what the world needs, but like the world knows better, right? Mm-hmm. And so like, but there, you know, if you build nothing, nobody's going to engage with you because they're like, well, why should I talk to you? You got nothing to give me, right? You got to build something. You bring that as an offering to the market and be like, oh, do you like this? And they'd be like, well, this is broken. That's like, I don't like this. And if you listen, the minute they're complaining, they're actually like telling you how to improve your product. And then you can go back and like iterate over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. Right. But the challenge is like, every minute in a startup that you're trying to do something, you're like kind of expending some resources, right? Mm-hmm. Money, your time, the patience of your investors, whatever, right? But every time you have that touch point where you're like, oh, here's my offering. No, here's all the ways that I hate it. Mm-hmm. Like, that's an opportunity. Only at that point do you recognize, like, is there an opportunity to kind of improve what you have, right? Mm-hmm. And so the idea is just like, build your machine so that you can maximize the number of those touch points. Because if you can do that quickly, and even if you improve only a tiny amount at every iteration, you're going to end up with a fantastic product at the end. If you do that really slowly, you either have to make big leaps of improvement or have like really strong gut intuition for what works, because like you're just not going to get that many at-bats. Mm-hmm.
Now, you probably want to get really clear on who are your customers and how do you reach out to them. Deep down, most people have an aversion to reaching out to somebody that they've never met before. If you lose that fear and send the message, you'd be amazed how much can change. Here's James Green on why.
I have absolutely no shame to cold email. Literally no shame. Almost every investment I've ever made has come from a cold email. You can get people's emails very easily online using one of the various tools. You can find out about people's interests and investments using deep research from OpenAI. The best way is highly curated, direct. If I send someone 10 cold emails and they don't respond to me, I will get someone who I know knows them to tell them to meet me. And they'll say, okay, I'm sorry I didn't respond to your cold emails. That does happen. But we live in an era where I don't really have time to wait for people. I know who I want to speak to. I know why I want to speak to them. I also have people cold WhatsApp me. I cold WhatsApp people all the time.
Okay, that is bold.
I will ask a friend to give me their number, because they'll probably have it, and I will send them a cold WhatsApp. Yeah. And let me tell you, they respond to that.
Have you tested that Americans versus Europeans? I just know that some of my German friends will be like, get me off your list now. Have you heard of GDPR?
Yeah, but if you want to get into the decision maker at a large company and you need one signature to close your quarter and they will not respond to your emails, you better find their phone number. Because if you don't, you're going to miss the quarter. And that could be the difference between raising a growth round and not raising a growth round. Have absolutely no shame and go figure that out.
Now, to go from pitching your idea to actually winning deals with customers, there's one book that we heard from founders time and time again that can probably help you. Here's Dev Amratia, founder of AI construction company Nplan.
The mum test just taught me one thing, which was the only thing you really need to care about is what someone else's problems are, right? The mum, like my mom, your mom, really cares about what your problems are. If they come back from school and you're like, oh, looking down, it's like, Joe, you look a little down today. What's going on? Why are you down? Like, why? She's asking why. we sometimes get annoyed with that, but really they're doing it from a position of care. So you have to begin to care, like your mum cares about you, care about that person's problem, and just have this infatuation to solve their problems. That's part one. And part two is remember your ideas are worthless. Never push your idea onto someone else. You are seeking an insight from them to you. That way, not that way. And that's the currency you're trying to gain. So just two principles. And I think just those two things alone is good enough to ideate nearly anything in the world.
So step 4, you've now found a problem that you want to solve. You might have raised some capital and you're doing deals with your first customers. Next, it's time to put fuel on the fire. It's time to scale. All of the world's most successful companies had scaling issues. We've seen it time and time again from basically every founder that came on the podcast. Scaling issues are a feature of building a business, not a bug. Here's Lars, founder of Google Maps, on the early days of building the company.
What was the hardest challenge that unlocked the growth of Google Maps?
So super good question. So we launched it, and it exploded on the first day, which was breathtakingly exciting. In fact, I'll tell you a fun story. So Google didn't have any maps, anything, right? So we thought we'll do an end-to-end test the night before the launch.
Okay.
So we actually went live with maps.google.com, but we didn't tell anyone. There was no links to it and anything. So we thought we could test it in silent and quiet. And almost immediately a blog appeared. Google has launched Maps. And so it turned out there was this blogger who guessed that eventually Google will launch a map site. And of course it's going to be a maps.google.com. So you had a robot pinging maps.google.com. And so when we went live, he got to blog about it before we even...
Wow, he was ready for that.
It was crazy. And then, the blogosphere blew up and everyone came. And even before we had announced the launch or put any link anywhere on Google's properties, it just blew up. And I think on the first day, actually, so Google didn't have a lot of bandwidth back then because it was just search, right? So you'd have 1,000 computers answer a search and just get these 10 blue links. So they didn't need a lot of bandwidth out of the data centers. And then we Google Maps launched, suddenly all of these images of maps were coming in and out. And so on the first day of Google Maps, we almost destroyed search. There was this guy in the data center with his finger on the kill Google Maps before it kills Google search button, and we just barely survived that day. Because our maps were much faster moving around, but the initial load time, so we had to load a lot of JavaScript and then render the maps were done. If you just had one question, loading the map the first time was actually slower than MapQuest.
Right.
We architected the whole thing so that the initial load would be static HTML, and then we were bringing the JavaScript afterwards and then make the site dynamic.
When you start scaling, you might struggle with one of the hardest shifts in your startup, which is giving control to people in the business that are not you or your co-founding team. Gabe from Harvey AI, who we spoke with at Slush, built a $100 million revenue business in 3 years by learning this lesson.
A big challenge I had is when I did research, I spent a lot of time as an IC working myself. And when you do research, you spend all your time kind of trying to come up with the answer yourself. And I think the biggest scaling challenge, and we've been super fortunate to hire such great people where now most of my job is not coming up with the answer. It's how do you hire the right people? How do you build the right organization? How do you just get out of people's way? And I think it took me longer than maybe it should have to learn how to do that, and I'm still learning to do that. Well, there'll be things where I want to jump in and be no, this is the answer. But I think getting to that point and being able to okay, we've put the right pieces in place and you can get out of the way. I think that's a big learning that I've had and what I would have told myself 3 years ago.
Now, when you're scaling, you have to think ahead of where you and your team are today. Here's Mirko, serial founder of Dash Zero, and his number one insight on scaling that most founders usually miss.
If you feel that you have traction, that you have product market fit, you have to put gas on the fire.
And that there is a category here, somebody's going to win it.
Exactly.
Is it going to be us?
Yeah. And the winners will be the ones who figure out go to market and go really fast, right? Because it's always about the speed you get into the market.
And now we're on to maybe the most important step of all of this, which is how to build a winning founder's mindset. Every founder in this video had to learn the same lesson, which is that your mindset is the unlock for everything else. Here's one of the first episodes we did with Pinstripe Chris, the amazing artist that has built a multi-million-dollar business from his passion.
If I tell a potential client, yeah, this is my side gig, I kind of do this as a hobby for fun, that guarantees that I won't get paid well for that job. Because it's also how you represent your business. If you represent it as this side passion project that you do, I wouldn't expect anybody to pay full price or feel as serious about it. If you go, yeah, this is my entire income, this is everything that I do, then it squares what somebody else's expectations of you very differently. Because also people will see that you're serious about what you're doing versus being partially interested. People wait until their hobby takes off before they decide to take it seriously. Just so everybody knows, that never happens. Maybe 1 out of a million people get lucky. The takeoff part is you getting serious about it and putting effort the rest of the way forward. That's it.
Now, you might already feel like you have an idea, maybe a few ideas that you would love to start working on, but you just haven't committed yet. The only way to find out if those ideas can work is to make the leap and get started.
Almost always, like on the other side of that scary leap is something really good. I don't know about you, but I can like identify a lot of times where I was really on the verge and I took a leap and then I'm like, thank God I did that, you know?
Almost like the resistance is the signal that this is the way.
Yeah, sometimes. Like, yeah, otherwise you just end up stuck in a career you hate or in a relationship you hate or in a country that's not right for you. And who is that doing any good?
Now, this one was surprising for me. Across the last 6 months, all of the founders that I met shared one feeling. They all felt behind. Behind in life, behind in their work, sometimes behind in their family life. I've felt like that in the past, and if you're feeling like that too, trust me, you're not alone. But what really counts is, can you take that energy and turn it into action that moves you and your company forward?
In 2004, when I was just kind of like starting out, I felt late. Like I was like, man, there were like so many like awesome companies in the 90s and there was like this amazing bubble and like, you know, kind of Facebook, maybe they already won this sort of social media thing. You know, I felt late then and, you know, I feel late constantly. In fact, I felt late, like even, you know, I started Crowdflower. Honestly, we were like a decade early, but there were a bunch of other AI labeling companies at the time, you know, and when I started Weights and Biases, there were a bunch of other companies doing exactly what we did. And I thought, you know, maybe, you know, we're late to the game. So I just think if you're living in San Francisco and you're like trying to come up with, you know, new startups, you just always feel like you're late. There's always someone ahead of you, but honestly, you're probably early, right? I mean, there was a time when it looked like, you know, OpenAI was just going to completely run away with the LLM market. And then, you know, Anthropic comes along and then DeepSeek comes along and just like, you know, things just change so fast here. When you're on an exponential curve, you look back and the slope looks so steep. But if you look like forward, it's like even steeper.
So that's it. This has been the 5-step playbook for starting your company in this coming new year. I hope these insights inspired you as much as they inspired me. And if you want to dive into any of the full episodes, you can always check out Founders and Builders on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Music. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram and TikTok. The links are in the description below. In terms of this year with Founders and Builders, I personally could not be more excited. We've got huge plans for the podcast. We're going to go all over the world to meet with founders and share their experiences and stories with you. So don't forget to hit subscribe if you haven't already. But for now, absolutely smash your start to 2026. Trust yourself and go for what you really want. Let's get to it.